Good afternoon, everyone. Probably expecting a smaller audience today because our American friends are celebrating Thanksgiving, but not to worry. We will continue, and because the demand was so high to have him back from a few weeks ago, I've brought on my colleague and co-author. Hey, less said about that, the better. Mr. Mark Ackers.
I was going to say morning, afternoon, Rich, colleague and co-author. No mention of friend.
Well, yeah, there's work to be done on that front. But anyway, hopefully this is a really interesting one that we've got today. But so today's call's a little bit different. We're not listening to the kind of classic ice cold calls that we've been listening to previously. This is a little bit of a different one, and it's all about reactivating prospects who have gone dark, and we're going to do a little bit of email, but we're going to focus predominantly on the phone here, using emails and calls that Mr. Mark Ackers himself has been making. So, if you are at a stage in your sales year where you're thinking about how do you reactivate prospects who've gone dark on you this year, then I want you to just get involved in the session today, and I want you to tag any colleagues who may also be at this stage. You know, we're in kind of November, who may be thinking about how can we build more of a pipeline as we get close to the end of the year. If you've got any prospects, I can see George Britton's already tagged a couple of his colleagues in. And you want to find out how you can re-energize those conversations that maybe you had earlier this year that have gone a bit silent, or those prospects have disappeared. Get them tagged in this post, and hopefully you're going to hear some great stuff today. And I'll also do a little bit of constructive feedback on Mark's call as well that he's going to prepare himself for. Mark, why don't you just start by saying why is now a really good time to be reactivating prospects who perhaps we had initial conversations with early this year, and wanting to get them back in the pipeline.
Yeah, so it's a really good time of year to reach back out to people. And the best thing is everyone's had this throughout the year, right? You have great conversations. George, I see you. You have great conversations. They go quiet and you're in chase mode, and then nothing ever happens. People are starting to plan for next year, if not already. They're thinking about next year. They're thinking of 2021. This is a great time to just drop them a message and ask them if they're still interested in the conversations you had. And that's called a reactivation email. So I thought it'd be great to take a look at some of the emails that I've been sending out, really share a success story, and then talk about some of the calls that you can make off the back of that as well. But the key answer there, Rich, is people are starting to think about next year, and you've had a good conversation. Perhaps it's time to revisit.
I don't know about you, but I've always found this time of year, people are generally a bit more kind of open to starting those conversations. I think, especially with the kind of year we've had, people are feeling a bit more, kind of friendly and warm, and, definitely open to having those discussions. And maybe what I've kind of found is the people who may have got a bit anxious and nervous about the impact of COVID early this year, maybe like a lot of that, the smoke's blown away a little bit. They're feeling a little bit more at ease, and maybe it wasn't so bad that after all. But I just want to ask a question. So question number one, just for the audience, just to get some comments flowing here, is I want to know, this year, if you had to guess, how many prospects did you create a meeting with and they ghosted you? So you had a prospect, they committed to meeting with you, maybe you even had that initial meeting, but then silence. They just disappeared off the face of the earth. I want you to put a prediction of the number of prospects that happened to. I'm gonna kick this off, and I'll say, if I actually think about people who I got that commitment for, and they sort of no-showed me or they vanished, I'm talking like 30, 40, maybe close to 50 people if I actually think about it. Mark, what about you?
So funny enough, I had 30 in my head. It probably is higher than that. It's easy to forget about people, isn't it? I think the real question here, though, is like there's different levels of where it goes wrong. People will always buy when it's the right time for them, and you won't always find out what the real reasons are. But I would say the other question is, how many did you get to advanced stages? Do you know what I mean? Where You've built a business case. You've got solid user case. You know it's a good fit, and they ghost you. I mean, they're the more painful ones. They maybe count for 10 of the earlier stages.
Yeah.
I would say, look, between 30 and 50 is probably a good ballpark.
Yeah, I see Shane. Shane, good to see you on here, mate. 21. He's one upped Lily, who went for 20. So there's a competition of who's had the most disrespect from prospects. I love it. Shane says too many. Well, I'll not ask for any specific numbers, but clearly there's a bit of pain there from Shane. But well, all I'm saying is, sometimes the easiest conversations to get back on are the people who've already committed to speaking with us in the past, whether they actually spoke this before or not. They've already said yes once, which means they're more likely to say yes again. And question number 2, before we jump into some great approaches and techniques here, I want to know, for those prospects who did ghost you, who did go dark, what is your preferred method of contacting and following up on those contacts? Is it phone? Is it social? Is it email? I just want you to put in the method of prospecting that you typically use to follow up prospects who've gone dark on you. I want to see some of them come through. And Mark, I know that you've got some preferences. We'll not dive into that just yet, but I just want to hear some examples, because I think one of those big questions people ask is, how do you follow up, and how much follow up is too much follow up? I mean, maybe that's a good question, Mark, to ask you. When do you feel there's just too much follow up? Like, what point do you kind of call it quits?
That's a difficult one. And I think that's one of the difficult tightropes that we have to walk in sales, right? When do you become persistent, and when's that turn to a pest? There's that saying, like Josh Braun, right? If anyone listening doesn't follow Josh Braun, he says you should never chase cats because cats run away. I would sort of say, like, you can put some effort into chasing, but it does become a tipping point. I think the real thing here, though, is the mindset of the sales rep. Just because they've ghosted you doesn't mean they're no longer a good fit. Quite the contrary. Like, they're still a good fit. It just means it wasn't the right time. Perhaps something's changed. Perhaps they've gone to somewhere else. You never know the real reasons, but you can find out by reactivating and revisiting them. And at the end of the year, it kind of feels like a bookend. It's the end of the year. You're reflecting. You're planning for the new year. You are more open to those conversations. I find that you do get a little bit more information as well. It really is a good time to be revisiting old prospects.
Awesome. So let's jump into one approach we use here at Refract. It's called the reactivation email. Mark, I'm actually going to share a real example of a reactivation email you sent out that had some success. But talk me through, what is the whole premise and concept behind a reactivation email?
Yeah, so a reactivation email is something that everybody on here can actually do before the end of the day. It's super quick. It's a really stripped back email that just asks a direct question. The response rates and the open rates are phenomenal. My open rates are around 57%, and my response rates are around 38%. And that's because of the structure of the email and how concise it is. And the call to action is just really straightforward. As I say, let's bring that to life. Everybody can send some reactivation emails before the end of the day.
Yeah, so I'm just going to share my screen, and we're going to, again, use a real example here of a reactivation email that Mark himself sent. So, Mark, why don't you just talk us through some of the elements that you've got on your email here?
Yeah, so let me actually just explain what I did to create this email. And this is what everybody can do. Go into the CRM, all opportunities lost this year. You can just grab that list and then you send this email. So we've got the first name, quick question as the subject line. Really short, really concise, but still personal. And quick question does just create a little bit of curiosity. You know, what is it? And then you can see the body of the email is so simple. It's just, hi, their name, and then it's just one direct question. Are you still interested in? And then you put in the key problem that you solve / that you were talking to them about, moving into what would now be 2021. Don't let anyone tell me I can't read a calendar. So yeah, hey, are you still interested in, and for me, it was improving your team's sales conversations moving into 2020. Nothing else, no big body of text, no how are you? Are you feeling okay? Are you keeping safe? No big signature, just a real stripped back email that ultimately requires a response of yes or no. And they can do that in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, I think the kind of the psychological side of this I'm really interested in, because it is ultimately its simplicity. Like, and we talk in sales about being different, and how many times do you basically will prospects have had the same follow-up emails again and again, just checking in, or have you got a chance to speak, when's a good time to talk, or did you get my last email, and all these, they just, before the prospects even finish reading the first line, they're just like deleting the emails. What I like about this approach is its simplicity, that you're just asking the prospect a very simple yes or no question. It's different, first of all. And secondly, it's such an easy question for the prospect to respond with. They don't feel like they've got to give you loads of reasoning or loads of background or a big update. It's just like, I'm asking you a very simple question. I just want you to give me a very simple yes or no answer.
Here's the thing, right? It's conversational as well. It doesn't feel like a formal email. It doesn't feel like a big thing you've got to respond to. It doesn't sit in your inbox. It's just yes, no, done, and we can move on.
Neil's asked, does the market sector you work in influence your follow-up policy? I think it's just like anything, Neil, when it comes to prospecting, it's horses for courses. Like, some approaches will work better for others, and I'd say that's the same for the initial first, cold touch to the follow-up, but also a blended approach. And we'll actually, in this exact LinkedIn Live, we'll show you how Mark actually sent a reactivation email last week to a prospect, didn't get a response. He did the same approach on the phone and got a very different outcome. But before we get on there, I just want to jump onto the next slide here.
So, yeah, the key here is I want everyone just to look at the date. So this time of year, perfect. Look at the time. I sent this at 11:20 in the morning, and let's just check out the response. It said, in fact, Rich, go to the next slide. It's the same one, but just highlight this. I got this at 11:21. So less than 60 seconds later, I got, yes, I'm still interested.
Yeah, and I think this just speaks to that whole psychological element I was talking about before. You asked him a very simple question, and he came out with a very simple answer. He hasn't even said, yes, let's talk, or yes, because all of this has been happening. He's just, it's the easiest email in the world for him to respond to. And because it's easy, that's why he's probably responded quickly. Like, he hasn't, even if he's busy, just thought, I can actually just type this out in literally 5 seconds. Mm-hmm. So this is a super effective technique, and I can, just the simplicity of it, the fact that the question you ask is not about, do you want to talk again? It's actually just asking, are you still interested in tackling that problem that we were talking about earlier this year?
Well, here's the thing, right? Like, how many times can you just be walking around the office or the house now, you see a big email and you think, I'll tackle that later. With this one, you could just literally write on the way to the bathroom, yes, I'm interested. That even looks like he wrote that on his phone on the go, because there's no signature.
Yeah.
The reason I'm sharing that is, as I say, everybody can send that email out today. It takes 15 seconds to write. I picked up the phone, I called him up, booked a meeting. A couple of weeks later, they were a paying customer. You can send reactivation emails today and start putting them in your pipeline that you can close off before the end of the year.
Here's a question I want to hear from the audience. Following this LinkedIn Live, how many prospects are you going to send a reactivation email to before the end of today? I want that number. How many? I mean, so Lily said 20 at least. So is there 20 reactivation emails going out? Shane Power Murphy, 21. Sean Mead, can you send too many reactivation emails is the big question. We will find out. Anyway, the reactivation email doesn't always work. People don't necessarily respond to one method of contact. So sometimes it's about changing it up. And so we go to the phone. And so this brings me to a call that Mark, I think, was it this week you made this call, Mark, or last week?
Yeah, I think it's Tuesday.
Tuesday.
As you say, just very quick, I think the stats are important here. For me, 57% open rate, 38% reply rate. But as you say, they don't all reply. So what you do is you pick up the phone.
Shock horror, making a phone call. So you made this call on Monday. Talk me through the prospect that you'd contacted. What when had you last spoke with this prospect?
Long time ago, I would say probably 5 months ago. He had an order form. And this is rare. This, I would say, when you get to that stage, normally it's a deal for us, isn't it? When you send an order form out, but this one was really strange. Do you know though? Do you know when you have those sales conversations where it feels a little too easy?
Yeah.
And listen, they don't come often, right? But it just feels like, okay, yeah, he's asked for an order form, but like you feel like it's just been too easy. So I sent it over, waiting for it to come back. It never come back. I chased. I tried everything. I even got him on the phone. He went, "I'll call you back in 5 minutes." 5 months later, I'm still waiting.
Yeah, we all know what that means when you get a prospect and I'll call you back. It's the equivalent of send me some information. So, right, well, let's listen to this call. So this is a prospect Mark spoke with in the summer, got to the point of sending out a contract, didn't get signed, ghosted, fell off the face of the earth. He'd sent a reactivation email, no response. So Mark used his initiative, picked the phone up. Let's listen to the call. So here we go. I'm just going to share my screen and we're going to dive into Refract and we're going to listen. I'm going to just pick out chunks of this call. This is pretty much the start of the conversation once the pleasantries have been passed. So here we go. Let's hear what it sounds like.
As well, but no, I mean, I'm all right, Dan. But listen, I appreciate you weren't expecting it to be me when you answered the phone, and I'm not disappointed you. But I was just conscious because we sort of just lost track, didn't we? I felt like I lost you. And I chased you a fair bit, and I thought, well, I'm not going to keep chasing because you chase cats, they run away. So,
right, I'm just going to stop it there. I'm just going to break down some of the stuff I've heard there, and please, in the comments, guys, I would like you to provide your input and thoughts and feedback on what you're hearing in the call here. As I said, this is one of the best things about doing these broadcasts is actually hearing how others would approach the same situation. So, Mark, there's two really interesting things I think you did here, which I really liked. The first one is that you said, "I hope you're not disappointed that I've called you." And despite the time, most of the time, I'm disappointed when you call me. To be fair,
lies.
When what I like about this is that there's a lot of talk right now about like self-deprecation, and it's just like that whole thing of like humanizing yourself, and it's kind of like you said, "I hope you're not disappointed that I've called you," and it's kind of like you could hear like his laughter, albeit might have been a little bit of sarcastic laughter there, but it's that classic thing in sales: if you can make them laugh, you can make them talk, and it's just I think that just kind of totally would have brought down his barriers of like, oh God, Mark's called me and he'd be wondering why I never signed his contract 6 months ago and I ghosted him ever since. But I think it's just worked really well.
Well, here's a really key thing that we all need to just acknowledge. He owes me nothing, this guy. He owes me nothing, right? Just because I sent him an order form doesn't mean he has to sign it. However, there is every possibility he might feel bad. He might feel a little bit embarrassed about his behavior. He might feel that he's let me down. He might feel that he tried lots to get hold of me and I blanked him. So I feel like you need to bring a bit of humor here, or it could be awkward.
Yeah, totally.
That's why that self-deprecation was there. Is like, listen, this is on me. Maybe you're disappointed to hear from me. You're the good guy. Despite what happened, you're the good guy. I'm the sales rep.
Yeah. I think you're right there. You make a good point. He owes you nothing. Like, prospects who decide not to buy do not owe us anything. That's just part of sales. The other thing that I thought you said there is like, listen, I decided not to overly chase you, and you use the phrase that you used before of like, when you chase cats, they run away. And I think that just, again, it just made you sound like not like your atypical salesperson. You weren't like, oh, I followed up. That you followed up like 20 times and didn't get a response. Listen, if you followed up with someone 10 times and getting a response, like you should just basically, take the message and like understand that someone, you can't. Yes, follow up is important, but I think like it gets to a stage where you are just battering on someone's door who isn't going to open it. And I just think you just again made yourself sound different by just saying, I didn't want to follow up because this is what happens when you overly chase people. So let's go to the next bit of the call and let's listen to what the prospect says in response.
Well, I thought I'd give you a call.
I'll tell you why. So I was trying out some other bits of software, but they haven't done really what I wanted. I mean, if I'm honest, call intelligence is not top of mind. Nothing's top of mind. I'll close this door quickly because I can hear my boy. Nothing's top of mind right now. But I was trying out a couple of other bits of software, but to be fair, they haven't done what I wanted them to either. So in that respect, I haven't gone somewhere else. Right. Although I tried to be quite clear with you. I did try to because they were cheaper, but I didn't do what I wanted. So that's me being fairly candid.
Wow, interesting stuff. So the truth comes out. He ended up running away with a couple of other companies. So Mark, like, how did you feel when, like, this is ultimately the reason why he never got back to you, is that he went to try out a couple of other pieces of software. How did you feel when he said that initially?
Delighted. I'll tell you why, because it proves what I said earlier on. Despite ghosting me, he's still a good fit prospect. He still wants to solve this problem. He still want to pay our prices. So he tried to look at cheaper alternatives, and they've not worked out for him. He's got burn marks here because, and do you know what? He says not top his priority list. Maybe when it gets to his priority list, maybe I would have heard from him. I've just got in there before, and he'd be more open to it because he's thinking of next year. So listen, it's a good thing. He's a good fit prospect. But now I've let him go. I've let him see what else is out there, and it's not as good.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And what he also said is, this is not top of mind right now. Nothing is. He just sounds like, I just take that as like, it's kind of, maybe this isn't top of mind. Maybe he sounds stressed. He's busy. Like, it's not, of course he wasn't thinking of this the second that you rang him. So like that's absolutely fine. It's now it's a case of, okay, how can we get this into your mind? Now I'm going to assume, one key thing he said there was those products, they didn't do what I wanted. In fact, I think he said that 3 times. They didn't do what I wanted, didn't do what I need. So I'm assuming you asked him what was the problem with those products.
I don't think I did. Listen, I defend myself slightly. Here's the thing, right? I've caught him on the hop. I know he's interested. The danger is I start to turn this into a discovery call. I absolutely will find out what they didn't do. You could argue that it's a really easy question to ask. Look, I feel like maybe I should have asked in truth. I'm sort of defending myself. But there's a danger when you turn it into a discovery. Just
curious to hear from the audience here at this stage in the conversation. If you were in Mark's position, how would you feel about this opportunity right now? If you were in Mark's situation, you've spoken with this guy earlier in the year. He even came close to, he got a contract sent out. He then went dark. He's then called him up and said, actually went to tried out a couple of competitors that didn't do what he wanted. How would you feel if you were in Mark's position right now? And what would be in your mind as far as what you want to achieve by the end of this call? Ellie Rainey says, Mark, were you aware these competitors were on the radar when you sent out the order form?
It's a good question. I'd like to say yes. It was so long ago. It was like 6 months ago. I feel like I was aware. I feel like it was actually a different competitor to the 2 he mentioned. I feel like he looked at someone else, then was looking at us, and then decided to go with us, sent the order form out. He's then looked at the cheaper alternatives. It was a long time ago. That's the only thing.
William Dixon says it's time to get the sale. Wow. I like your confidence, William.
Leave it with me, William. I'm on it.
And just, I'm curious, William, in this situation, when you've heard that he bought cheap and maybe got cheap, didn't get what he needed, what approach would you take next? Shane Power Murphy says, discover what didn't work with the competition. It's absolutely, I think, the key thing to do here. But I think there's a careful balance to strike here. Mark makes a fair point. This is a call out the blue. It is essentially a cold call that he's made, albeit a little bit, it's got a warm background to it. He doesn't want to go down a full-blown discovery. It's about getting this guy. Does he care about this enough to pay attention? And can we get him on a discovery call? Shane Mead says, I want to confirm exactly what the prospect's looking for. I totally agree. Maybe now is the time to do it. Maybe not. Let's hear what Mark does ask next.
Well, listen, I appreciate the honesty. I was wrong, mate. I appreciate the honesty. Who did you try out of interest?
So Mark does ask the question, who did he try? We're going to speed past the next bit. I don't want to reveal the names of the companies just for their own fairness. That was mentioned, but he mentions 2 companies. And I'm just going to jump to the next bit of the conversation. hear what happens next in the call.
Fine if it all works.
Yeah, no, well, like anything, right? It's good if it works.
Yeah.
So fair enough. Well, listen, I appreciate you probably got other things to do and you want to get finished off so you can spend some time with your boy. But is it ridiculous of me to say, Dan, should we be revisiting this? Refract's got a few new things that I think would be helpful for you, particularly having a remote team and having a team that you haven't got bags of time to invest in. We've added, and it does what it says on the tin, a virtual coach to Refract that basically will coach your reps for you as well, which I think would be really helpful. It's been really well received with people that don't want to miss a coachable moment but struggle for time, and it's really important that their reps learn from them. So we've added a little bit, and it felt like the business case was there. Obviously, you've looked elsewhere, and that's fine. Is this something that you do want to revisit?
So interesting there, Mark. So you kind of said, listen, I totally understand these things happen. You said it asked a question, would it be a ridiculous idea to take a look at this again? Talk me through that question.
I did, but I'm so mad at myself because I asked it and then I just carried on talking. Let's imagine I paused there, right? So would it be ridiculous? He's just, I think it's more slander, isn't it? You use an outlandish word or phrase that they're going to say, well, no, he's going for the no. Of course, it's not ridiculous. I knew it wouldn't be ridiculous. So yeah, I was just saying to him, like, listen, is this totally crazy for us to revisit this? I knew he could only say no, right? He's looked at other competitors. Yes, it's not top of priority, but then I started, you would have heard it there, but maybe it's more our context of people. I'm hitting on his challenges. He's got a remote sales team. I know this guy's strapped for time. I know that the quality of conversation needs to improve. So I hit on a few notes there. I'm asking him to revisit.
Yeah, you made the choice to promote a new feature that Refractive launched this year. Did you do that intentionally because you felt like you needed to kind of get him excited or kind of differentiate us, or what was the reason behind why you did that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, here's the reality. He looked at our product, we liked it, but it wasn't prepared to pay for it. He went somewhere else. But I'm now telling him we've got some new stuff. Like, it is absolutely worth having a second look. So yeah, I felt like I needed to say to him, don't just come back to the same holiday, go somewhere else and that's a terrible analogy. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I'm trying to say come back and see what's new, basically.
Yeah, sure. This is a really interesting part of the call. This is, you asked the killer question here. I'm just going to play it and let everyone hear.
That's fine. Is this something that you do want to revisit?
Yeah.
Great.
Right. Interesting. Like, talk about tension.
Well, just on that, Rich, right? This is something that actually was on my LinkedIn yesterday. Someone said that with the reactivation emails, I was asking a closed question. Closed questions don't get the credit they deserve. I wanted a definitive answer there. Yes, I don't want maybes. I wanted a yes or no. Closed questions aren't always a bad thing.
You're singing to the choir here, Mark. There's this like old wives' tale in sales that like closed questions are an awful thing. Actually, closed questions give you direction. They give you certainty. Like, did you really want to have another conversation, go down a whole sales cycle with this guy if he wasn't actually serious about looking at this? It's just a waste of time. Like, you just ask the question outright. What would you have done if he'd said no there? I want to hear. If he'd said no, I want to hear what people would have said in the comments. If he'd said no, I'm not looking at this right now. What would you have done, Mark? What would you have done if he'd said no?
Speak to you later. I wouldn't have wasted any more time. What I would have done is I would have just said, listen, when do you think would be a better time? Let's say he said March. I'd say, well, what's going to change? I'd just try and flush that out. But listen, reactivation emails this time of year is all about pipeline that you can close before the end of the year. If he said no, I wouldn't be able to close him before the end of the year, so I wouldn't have wasted any more time.
Yeah, and I think that was the key part of this was the key part of the call. Was listen, let's not dance the silly dance that we often have, this seller buyer dance that people have where they're too uncomfortable to kind of let each other go or let each other down. Is like, just get comfortable asking the tough questions, asking the certain questions. You're not going to be offended if he says no. Like, and I'm sure he's going to prefer to give you the give you the honest answer there. Shane says, "What's been the cost of not taking any action?" I like this question. I just feel, personally speaking, and doesn't mean I'm right, this would have been quite not the right environment to ask that question. This is just like speaking to a guy for the first time in a few months, where 3 minutes into a call, definitely can see how that question would be really powerful, like in the next call. I just feel if you'd asked that question, you wouldn't have got. He would have got defensive. He would have been like, "Hang on, we're going too quick here."
I agree. Three minutes ago, he was in the room with his son. He's come out of the room with his son. He's shut the door. He's having a quick conversation with me. You can't turn this into a discovery call, but I will be asking that question in the next call. Spoiler alert.
The rest of the call, spoiler alert, is that you do boot the call. You have like a pleasant chat with them. But I think that was the key thing here. Key takeaways for me in this is that, first of all, the reactivation email that you sent didn't work. Okay, let's not just keep on bashing this guy with emails. Let's change it up. Go to the actual another mechanism. You got this guy on the phone. You got this. You asked this guy if he was, what happened. You got a response as like, you asked the question, do you want to look at this again or not? You kind of you almost ask the question that you ask in the activation emails just on the phone. You ask a very simple answer and you get a very simple response. He was like, "Yep." Silence. Not like "yep," but it might be next year initiative. It was a very solidified yes. So think about this this week when you're making, you're following up the prospects. I believe that everybody, if they took this approach, you can create new opportunities in your pipeline that are just sat there waiting to be surfaced from the dead, if you like. And hopefully these approaches will work really well for you. So, Mark, any last thoughts or takeaways for anybody?
No, I just think if you're not doing this week, you're going to miss the boat. Like, just literally get that list from the CRM. You've got an hour to the end of the day if you're a 9 to 5 on the nose. You can send these emails out instantly, but just remember, yes, I get good response rates, 30, 37, 38%, whatever it was. But then follow up, give them a call. And listen, they know who you are. They will remember you. You've had conversations. Just make it happen. You can close more pipeline than what you've probably got right now before the end of the year.
Excellent. There you go. Well, thanks for joining, everyone. Hopefully that was useful and valuable. Would love to hear if you use these approaches. Drop me or Mark a message on LinkedIn and let us know how you get on. And till next time.
Thanks.